Ooh, mosquito. Hey guys, Bethany here with the next chapter, and today is my last day of visiting with my grandma. I've actually been here for 2 weeks, and it's been awesome. And my kids have actually never been to Alaska before, so it was a great experience for them, and we did all kinds of cool things. I got to do all the touristy things I wouldn't have normally done, when I lived here, but they got to do it, so that was cool. So I was thinking that I needed to make a list for everyone about books that everyone should read about Alaska. And while I tell you about the books, I might, put in some, pictures and video from my trip so you can kind of see, and I'll try to, maybe match the area of the book it's in and that kind of thing. The first book on my list is Alaska by James Michener. And if you aren't familiar with James Michener, he writes these incredibly long books, 800, 1,000 pages, and he will write them about the history of a place. He's done lots of different places, but Alaska is one of my favorites. And he starts out in all of his books, he goes way back all the way to billions of years ago when the area was forming, and the mountains and glaciers and everything, and he works his way through from the time that it's just geological rock formations, and then all the way through as the animals are in the area, and then as the first people came into the area, and so on. And so this book follows from the very beginnings of the earth and all the way into the 70s is when the book ends. And so we get a lot of stuff about how the native tribes came to be in Alaska, and how the Russians discovered Alaska, and then of course how the Americans came to Alaska. And there's a middle part of the book that covers the gold rush, and honestly that section of the book could actually be its own book all on its own. It could really be a standalone novel, and it's really good. This book is really fascinating, and you learn so much about the history of Alaska, but he does it through telling the stories of fictional characters. He puts in true historical characters in it, but it's fictional characters, and you get to know about the history of the state through the lives of these fictional characters. So it's not just kind of a dry historical narrative, it's a fictional novel. And it's super good, so highly recommend that one if you're wanting to know more about Alaska. So the second book is one that I read just recently, and it's called The Smell of Other People's Houses, and it takes place in Fairbanks, Alaska in the 70s, and it follows 4 separate characters and their lives in that area and some of the difficulties that they face. So some of the characters are native and some of them aren't. And going through, all of them have different difficulties, and all of them come from difficult situations. And what I really liked about The Smell of Other People's Houses is that the descriptions of Alaska were excellent. They were spot on, not just in the physical descriptions of the area, but also in the descriptions of the people. I knew a lot of people that were like these characters in these books. So The Smell of Other People's Houses really had a lot of truth for me, and I really enjoyed that one, and so I think you should check that one out as well. The next book is called Two Old Women, and it's a really short one. It's just a little over 100 pages, but it is an Athabascan story. So the Athabascans are one of the native peoples in Alaska. It tells an old Athabascan story of 2 old women who are deemed by their tribe to be too old to come along with the tribe anymore. They're experiencing famine and difficulty finding food at the time, and so they have to leave these 2 old women behind. And instead of giving up and just dying, these 2 old women managed to get themselves together and to be able to survive without the rest of their tribe. And it's a really good story. It teaches you a lot about what it means to work hard and to survive, but also what it means to be part of a community. So I really liked that one. And then the final book is called The Great Alone. And Kristin Hannah is a very popular author, and I know The Great Alone was an extremely popular book. And I think what most people wouldn't realize if they're not from Alaska is how accurate this book is. I'm very picky when it comes to books about Alaska, because a lot of times you can tell that the authors put the setting in Alaska, but they didn't actually do a lot of research. They've never been here, that kind of thing. And so what I really loved about The Great Alone is that her descriptions of the scenery and the area are spot on as well. And you can really see and feel what it was like to live there. And it is a domestic thriller, but it does display accurately sort of the homesteading spirit and the sense of community in small towns and the remoteness of small towns and what those areas are really like. So I highly recommend The Great Alone as well. If you have any other favorite books about Alaska that you want to tell me about that you've read, let me know in the comments. There's a million others out there, but those are 4 that came to my mind that are particularly good. So I hope that you try them. And also, as usual, don't forget to subscribe so that you don't ever miss what's happening in the next chapter. Thanks for watching.